Jekyll hid his hide, you kept your monster locked
Yay!
inside.
Solarah, thank you for joining me on my post podcast.
Thank you for having me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm excited to be here. I'm a little nervous, I am, but I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. Also, I'm quite an introvert also, so and I have some social anxiety, so under the best of circumstances, it's a little bit, nerve-wracking.
Then all the more reason for me to be grateful that you've joined me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So when did you join Substack, and how did you come to find it? Why did you choose to sign up on the day you did?
Sure. I signed up for Substack back in 2022. I had a friend at the time who had mentioned it, but I didn't start posting until last October. So I originally had a newsletter it was a membership only newsletter called Daily Alchemy, and I decided to bring an end to that last May, or to transition out of how I was providing it. And so I took a few months off, and October came around and I said it's time to get back into the daily writing, and decided it was time to move it to Substack. So I finally hit the publish button, I think maybe the third week of October, and just began from there.
But have you always been a writer? Were you a journaler previously?
I discovered writing when I was a teenager. It was one of the ways I learned I could express myself. I've always loved language. I was the kid who would be curled up in my dad's study, like reading the encyclopedia and finding different ways to say the same thing. I love the English language for the fact that we can say one thing 1,000 different ways. And I fell in love with language at a very young age. But I began to write poetry as an angsty teenager, and soon realized I was a good writer. I was good at writing. I was good at expressing myself that way. And later on pursued that academically also, creative writing. And I've been writing fiction, nonfiction, even working on novels since I was like in my late teens. So I've been writing for a while. I haven't been publishing my writing only for like the past, I want to say, couple of years. I began with the little, I'm a chef. I'm a naturopathic chef, and I began to document that journey on Instagram. And so I'd write my little blurbs on there. And then eventually, when I shifted into this arena, I began Daily Alchemy. So I've been writing a lot, but publicly for only the past couple of years. Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Naturopathic chef.
Yeah. I'm trained in the holistic arts, so I'm trained in Western herbalism. I also have a background in some modalities in functional nutrition, specifically how it pertains to mental health. That's kind of what drew me into that field. So I also have qualifications in culinary nutrition, as well as I came through the College of Naturopathic Medicine here in the UK, and I got my chefing qualification too. So I'm very well versed in utilizing nutrition as medicine, and that was ultimately always what I wanted to do. So everything extends itself because everything is so interconnected, and so my foray into herbal medicine kind of brought me into learning how to utilize herbs esoterically also, because when you learn the physical properties of herbs, you soon begin to see that the metaphysical properties also match. So yeah.
It's all alchemy, really, isn't it? I mean,
it is. It's us. We like to, separate everything in in the way that we've been programmed, in the way we learn, but everything is interconnected, Yes. So it's beautiful when you begin to, like, the light bulb begins to go off and you begin to see those connections and be like, oh, it has this medicinal property because it has this energetic property, and it has this energetic property because it has this medicinal property too. So everything kind of, Everything is interconnected.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And funny enough, the song I am currently composing, writing lyrics for, is about that. So
very cool. That was my first ever download, actually. When my channel opened, that was literally the first thing that came through. I heard a voice, obviously not audibly. It was said to me, everything but everything is interconnected. You can't have one thought and not have it a ripple effect where it affects something else in a chain of events, and I didn't get it. It took me years to really figure that out, but it's so true. Yeah.
That's really the secret in a way. It's, the illusion is so strong that everything is separate, and it isn't. So yeah. That, and then, accessing, that is the path to accessing how you can shift the material world and, really deliberately alchemize the ether into matter, when you know that and understand that.
Yes.
It's really powerful.
It's a passport to your own liberation, because once you begin to realize that everything is interconnected, and therefore everything is the same, because we're dealing not with duality but polarity. So your strength is your weakness, and when you're able to find how to calibrate that and bring it into harmony for self, that's where you begin to realize, wow, I am the alchemist of my own reality. I'm able to constantly shift the way I experience life based upon the perspective I choose to, hone in on, I choose to magnify. So yeah, there's a lot of power in that. It makes us feel like we're less, we're not victims, we're not victims of circumstance. I was born in the US, right? I was born right outside of Washington, D.C. But I moved to England right before my 4th birthday, and I lived right in the suburbs of London. And I've lived in London proper on and off since, for like 20 plus years. I had a stint in New York for a while. That's where my kids were born. That's where I was married. But I've lived in London proper for like the past 20 years. When I first moved to the UK, I remember it very well, right before my 4th birthday. I had a lot of aversion to being here as a child. And I didn't realize until later on that it had a lot to do with my soul's history with the land. But when I moved to London about 20 years ago, I began to feel very connected. And so I love London. I don't know whether I'm going to be here forever. What I'm really trying to cultivate in myself right now is finding home internally. I think when you can find be so rooted and come home to yourself in such a strong and powerful way, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. And I'd love to feel that way, because I feel like we can have emotional attachment to things, to places, to people, but if we're not careful, it can become almost like a codependent, or it can get out of balance. And I never want to, or I want to break out of any habits I've formed where I'm staying out of a place of false comfort, as opposed to exploring and moving to the next place. Like right now, I know this is where I'm supposed to be, but I also see a future of traveling more, not being in the city so much, also getting away from the city. I am a city girl. I do love being in the city. But I do. There's an affinity my soul has to London very specifically. I can walk around the city and it's like I have at the risk of sounding trite, like a love affair. It's been a partner in so much of what it is I've been through in my life, and I adore London. I really do. Yeah.
That's beautiful. And it's funny, I hear that a lot about London particularly. I know there are PowerPoints of cities all over the world, but London has a very special place in many people's hearts. And there's something about London that captivates people.
I have traveled, you know, I wouldn't say extensively, but quite a bit more in my younger years. And out of all the cities in the world, I adore London. I never, in all frankness, I went to Paris in my adult life expecting what it is we're told about Paris, and I didn't find that. So to me, London is my most romantic city in the world, and yeah, I love London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Yay.
Beautiful.
And I hope
Yeah.
you make it here sometime soon so you can like connect with your relationship with the city too. That would be cool.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something I have thought about. I am understanding what you're saying about rooting within, you know, and having that be your home. But I am literally in the process of researching where I want to be geographically, because Canada is just not it for me, or at least the city I'm in currently. And so I am doing the same work you're doing, which is, am I running away for the right reason? Am I running away? Am I escaping? Or am I choosing an adventure? The world is always the world, and I am a free sovereign being who has a life to live, and I want to see this beautiful place I'm in while I'm here, and, you know, and feel free in exploring what this world has to offer. And so I'm often navigating that, you know, that perspective, and making sure that I'm choosing it for the right reasons, you know. So
I hear you.
Yeah.
It's a dance that we often find ourselves in right now, you know, testing the true desires of our hearts and our souls versus the programming that we're deactivating, you know. And it's so, the programming is so subtle, right? So you know, even the way we respond to like what you're saying, the fears that are being kicked up around location right now and what is happening in the world, and you know, just trying to find that you know, that way to walk the road in balance, where you're completely aware and discerning. I guess the word would be discernment, really trying to exercise discernment, and on a very personal level, because that's what discernment is, right? It's about doing what's right for you, and trusting yourself so intrinsically that when you do what's right for you, everything's going to work out and fall into place, right?
Yeah.
But it's easier said than done.
Yeah. And it is the work, right? So exactly. I love that. Yeah. Okay, next question. What did you decide to post as your first piece on Substack? Just to say, hey, here I am? Or did you just kind of continue on as you had been with your newsletter?
Yeah, because I knew I was coming into Substack. I also have YouTube channels, and because I knew I was coming into Substack and I was kind of restarting something I'd already begun, my main focus at the time was to reach out to the audience I already had. So I kind of just started posting on Substack. I did a Daily Alchemy article. I don't really remember what it was about. It was something to do with light codes and something to do with the solar weather at the time. It was an energy report. That was the first thing I posted back in October. And then I reached out to you know, my collective on YouTube and directed them over there. Yeah.
What inspires you to write what you're writing next? Is it because you're reading what's going on, you know, in the sky map and all of that? Is that
my freedom into being able to write, you know, regularly? Because I had this issue as a writer, like, how do I create a good writing practice? And I found that when I began Daily Alchemy, I had to. So I write about 5 to 6 days a week. A lot of my writing is channeled messages. So I will wake up in the morning and I'll receive a message sometimes and I'll expound upon it. I also, what helped me a lot, not only in writing Daily Alchemy, but writing in general, was learning the tarot. So I have a spread for my Daily Alchemy messages. So if I don't get a message, then I will, go into the tarot, go into the oracle, and based upon that, I'll pull out the message. But I'm very, very, I'm not very structured always in how I choose to write. Sometimes I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, this isn't really a Daily Alchemy message. This is more of a personal story or a situation I'm going through that I want to explore, because the way I view energy is that everything is a microcosm within a macrocosm. So everything is the internal energies and individual experiences we are going through are always a reflection of what's happening collectively too. So when I write from a personal level, I try my best, especially if I'm not doing a Daily Alchemy, I try my best to reconnect it to the collective story as to why I'm sharing that, because we're all going through things individually, we're all experiencing things on an individual level, but we're all sharing in this collective ascension story. So yeah, I kind of take it day to day and see what comes up and utilize the power of tarot. Sometimes I'll, like you said, I will be more drawn into the astrology of the day, and I'll go onto AstroSeek and I'll pull up and see what's happening, what's going on in the skies. But kind of like a free flow and following my own, intuition when it comes to how I write and show up on Substack. Yeah.
Great. I mean, that makes sense given your channel,
Yeah. It took a lot of pressure off when I learned that, when I learned how to open my channel and to use it, in terms of writing also. Yeah.
And really, isn't it amazing, that self-trust? It's, I think I'm an introvert as well. And I think that it's such a blessing in that we almost have a head start on that relationship with our inner selves, because we spend so much time with it ourselves. So, my introversion and love of solitude has often isolated me in life. Which is the one side of it. And now I'm really starting to appreciate and value that it's given me such a strong inner trust and inner compass. And, it's beautiful. So and it's no longer isolating me because I'm balancing that much better. And so all the gifts that come from an introversion and solitude are I'm just really reaping all the rewards of that, which a lot of that for me is creativity. But now the other chunk is to share it, which is why I started my Substack, because I was missing the relationship aspect and communing with the outside, and so I like that, people like us have that ability to go within probably a lot easier than other people who have to still learn that.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing that, we're living in a time and in a world where being introverted is finally, we're not castigated anymore. There was so much social programming in the false matrix that's been crumbling over the past few years, and I think the world is waking up to the fact that we're not all here to be the same. Like when I do people's tarot astrology charts, and when I look into some of their placements, sometimes you can see very clearly and definitively that there are people who are not here to learn by way of relationships. And maybe they're not here to learn by way, and not that they'll never have a relationship, but it's not their soul's focus for this lifetime. So there are some people who are here to really spend time getting to know their own soul in this, physical experience, and maybe in another lifetime they've had a lot of group interaction, or they've had a lot of their soul has developed a lot of learning through interacting with other people, but this is a lifetime where it's just like the soul's like, nope, this is, one to one, you and I, we're going to be here together. And yes, there will be people and relationships, etc., that are going to mold you, shape you, sharpen you. But ultimately, the main soul work you're here to do is to be with yourself. And I see that sometimes in people's charts, and when I began to recognize that, it helped me to make so much more sense when it comes to so many people who were not all designed to be constantly, for me, like, I have never been a person who could jump from one relationship to another, right? So I was married. He's the only man I dated him. I married him. I haven't had a serious relationship since. And not because I wouldn't want one, but because I'm not the type of person who, I never got how people could just date. Like, to me, that's exhausting, because that's not what I'm here to do. No judgment for people who do that. Like, if that's what you enjoy, then by all means do you. But for me, it was exhausting, and trying to fit in with the social expectations of constantly, mingling and doing all of these things to feel like you're normal. There's just something that's just been so, liberating in the past few years to realize, wait a minute, I set the tone for what is my norm. And it doesn't matter what anyone else has to say or to think. If I want to be, in my own company, that's what I'll do. But I get the battle with the isolation also. It's real. I have that too.
Yeah. What have you learned about yourself from having your Substack and from being in such a beautiful community of, I would say, high quality mirrors? I can't speak for you, and I'm sure you've heard me say it a couple times on that platform, but I'm just so impressed with the kind of people that I've been connecting with there. And
it is, what, it is a breath of fresh air, being on Substack, because I moved away from most social media completely about a year ago. Outside of like my YouTube channel, the other, like, Instagram was my main one. I'm not on there anymore. I have a TikTok, but I kind of dabble in it because TikTok's like a vortex for me, at least. I open it up and then 5 hours of my life is gone. I've just been spending it scrolling. It's like, so I don't trust myself in TikTok space.
Know thyself.
Exactly. So coming on Substack was really, it's very cool to be in a community of writers, for one thing. And for another thing, it's just everyone's so supportive in the Substack space. And I'm not used to that. I'm very used to the constant competition, the subtle, covert need to, like, elevate yourself above someone else and all that other crap that I left Instagram for, So on the one hand, it's really cool to be able to interact with other like-minded beings also. I also like the fact that Substack, it's more a space of sharing and getting yourself out there, instead of spaces like some of these other social media apps where there's a lot of tampering with the algorithm and playing with people's emotions and giving opportunities to some and not expose. Like, there's none of that on Substack. So I am very I struggle in the social media arena. I struggle as a writer. I think somebody did a beautiful post on this a few weeks ago, I saw, and they said that moment where you're so excited because someone's reading your stuff, right? but
Yeah.
then that
Yeah.
moment when you want to crawl in a hole because someone's reading your stuff. That's kind of the experience I've been like working through in the Substack space. It can become a little overwhelming for me at times, only because I'm just a very sensitive being in general, and I'm learning how to pull away when I need to without feeling bad. And that has been doing a work in my soul, because I'm so used to going against my own individual needs in order to satisfy an algorithm, right? Or to satisfy the standards for, whatever app I'm on. And I'm really fine-tuning my ability to be true to myself, and still coming back and showing up and seeing, oh, you still have support, so Substack has really, it's helped me move through a lot of, I want to say, like the roots of energies, like I feel like on my journey right now, and many of us right now, we're getting to the root cause of a lot of things. And it will show up in our day to day. It will show up in, in every aspect. It will show up any way it needs to in order for us to be able to see that root. And that's where my Substack journey has been. I've been dealing with a lot of the root energies that contributed to the cycles and the patterns. So it's been very rewarding on a personal level, but it's been a deep work also, which is great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And because it is
so supportive and so, conscious in a way I didn't expect. I agree. It is a place where we can do that work, and it can be deep work, and it can be, and I hate this term, but it's a safe space, and I mean that obviously in the highest possible way. I mean that.
Yeah.
We get to practice being vulnerable and sharing our insides, and it's okay to be doing that. And it's a beautiful mirror.
There aren't many spaces like that I've come across in the realm of social media where it's okay to be yourself and not posture.
I have left other social medias years ago. I think I stopped using Facebook in, I don't know, I'm going to say around 2008, somewhere around there. And it was because one day I realized, it just clicked. I feel horrible in my my stomach feels sick when I'm getting off Facebook, but it wasn't like that when I got on. I noticed that just here I'm living my day, and I go on Facebook and I come away from it and I feel gross. And I had to really make that connection. And I don't know if it was because I was doing the comparison thing. Maybe I wasn't prepared or ready, like you, being a sensitive being, but also really working on my self-esteem. And maybe I just wasn't able to see other people out there living what they're living and doing what they're doing, and having all of these successes or whatever it was, and then comparing myself to them and not being able to stand in my own support for myself. And
but you see, the thing about it is these social media apps, that's exactly what their design is for. If you want to get into like the more esoteric, energetic, metaphysical nature of the false matrix and its programs, one of its big programs was its envy program. And I talk about that quite a bit on my channel. And that is that we were purposely wounded so that we would feel like we are less than. And then that was constantly exploited, right? So how do you do that? Well, you create competition. You create the haves and the have-nots. And you make sure that you splatter the haves over every all media, so that they are the ones that everyone wants to aspire to. And they feel like they're better than you because they have what it is that everyone wants. But the big joke is that everyone's miserable and striving, whether they have or they don't. And so social media has just taken that envy program and it's perfected it, because you have all of this, and they say it, the influencers And what is influencing but emotional manipulation? It's getting into someone's waters and directing their energy based upon your ability to emotionally manipulate them. And so social media is wonderful for shadow work. If you want to use it for good, you can be able to see your own shadow and start to really deal with it. But also you can begin to see the intricacies of how we're constantly, those childhood wounds are constantly being exploited for commercialism, for capitalism, for consumerism, because how else are you going to get people to constantly want to consume and purchase if they don't constantly feel in lack and inadequate, you know? So
Absolutely. Although I am a capitalist, I will say, I'm just going to do it. But only because I believe in the true thing is trade between free people, you know, not the way it's whatever. But I also think that social media is functioning, and there's another aspect of it, which is the distraction aspect of, you know, knowing that our focus and our attention is what grows. And so it's this way to really just keep distracting individuals from focusing where they want to grow.
Because if you can redirect someone's consciousness, then you can get them off track.
Yes.
Right? And we don't live in a world where they want us on track, because they don't want us coming into the fullness of our empowerment. So one of the best things you can do is distract someone to take them off course.
Absolutely. And then imbue them with messaging that they're right. They're right, and anyone that doesn't think like them are the bad guys, you know? And that speaks to, again, why I started my Substack channel. Was knowing this and seeing this, I thought, well, since people's attention is being hijacked by so many things that are feeding what I don't want to see in the world, I'm going to offer another avenue for people to feast on what I want to see more of.
Yes. That's how you begin to change the world, by redirecting the energy and not focusing on what you don't want, but start focusing on what it is that you want to see in the world. It was Gandhi who said that, right? Be the change you want to see in the world. Yeah.
I had the makings of an SJW activist, got to change the world, got to fix the world. And it's, you know, I've graduated beautifully through that into, well, I'm going to create beauty, and I'll create, you know, beautiful, just beauty, and put that out there. And that is my activism. I mean, I don't call it that. I'm just doing that for conversation's sake, but it's been a really nice way to transmute that other energy into trying to fix this thing outside of me, and just to offer what I have, and knowing the mechanisms at play, that's actually, you know, that's the way to go. So
absolutely. When we show up and we are who we are fully, then we already are having an effect, you know? So if we want to change the world, we change ourselves, you know? Otherwise, you know, because I'm very much like that too. I used to, especially when I was younger, I'd look at the world and I want to affect change externally, but that's another distraction. It's another distraction.
I mean, it's how you know, and they, you know, the dungeon programming accrues foot soldiers. It's to take these beautiful human beings who are sovereign and to, you know, capture their minds and hearts under the pretense that they're doing good for the world, but they're not. They're being appropriated for, you know, their own slavery. Like they're, you know, so I mean, what a realm, right? What a wild world. I mean, I do love it. I am in love. And, you know, and I love, I think too, when you can really make peace with the fact that contrast necessarily exists. You know, I'm so comfortable with the contrast that I no longer I don't resist them or they or it or the bad guys or the elite, whatever people want to call them, because I respect and embrace them as a necessary part of this game. You know, you can't play chess without the black and the white pieces. So
that's right. And when we shift that perspective, I will often say, because I deal a lot with, you know, people who come to me because of spiritual issues, spiritual attacks and all of that. And throughout this ascension window, that energy is picked up. But the fact of the matter is the attacks are activations. They come, I've noticed that every time I've dealt with it, it's always come to show me something that I need to see in order to alchemize. In other words, it wouldn't even be able to enter into my reality if there wasn't something that was inviting it. So what is that thing that's inviting it? What is that food that I need to look at within myself, where I'm courting and calling in this situation for my soul? Not that I'm because I'm not one who's going to say you attract abuse and all that. No, not at all. And yet our own wounding and patterns will continue to call in things until we learn how to heal the root issues.
Yeah, absolutely. Beautiful. Man, we would have a nice tea in London if I was there, wouldn't we? What is your favorite book and or author?
My favorite book and or author. That's a difficult one. It really depends. When I really fell in love with literature, I fell in love with magical realism. So I fell in love with a lot of the South American writers. I fell in love with Gabriel Garcia Marquez and Isabel Allende and Julia Alvarez. So it's hard for me to pick one book. I have many favorite, genres of literature. So magical realism would be my favorite. In terms of authors, I'm a big Toni Morrison fan, Maya Angelou. In terms of fiction, in terms of nonfiction, Nikki Giovanni in poetry. I find it very difficult to choose just one book. I'm such a bookworm. Like, I've had more books in my bed in spaces of companions. Like, that was a joke when I was like in my 20s. I never shared my bed with anyone but books. So it's difficult. It's difficult. I'd have to shift the books over if anyone were to want to get in there. But yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I love reading in bed. It's the best.
Yeah.
Especially when you can allow yourself to not feel guilty, or when you can surrender. This is what I'm doing right now. It is the best.
And it's part of the craft. I still have to get over the guilt of it sometimes, but it is part of the craft. You become a better artist, whether you're a singer, songwriter and a musician, or you're a writer, or you're a photographer. You get a better grasp at being an artist through observation. And observation can come through in so many ways. Watching a movie can inspire you. So much of our programming in this false matrix makes us feel guilty for being in observation mode. But that's a key part of creating, of being creative,
Yes.
Well said. I like the way you put that. Yeah. We're certainly up against keeping people's imaginations alive right now, with our attention of a goldfish thing happening.
Absolutely. And then the rise in AI, which it's beautiful in its convenience, but if we don't know how to use that in balance, it really can kill a lot of human creativity. So
what matters most to you?
Oh wow. Being a good mother. Being a good mom, being a good mother. I'm not perfect one, far from it. I've learned my toughest lessons through motherhood. It forced me to grow up. It's still forcing me to grow up. But it showed me unconditional love. It showed me that was possible. And it's through motherhood that I learned how to heal. I didn't... I will always joke, my daughter, when she was a toddler, she was like just such, that's where I began my shadow work. was through my interactions with her, because she was so feisty and like just stubborn and strong-willed. And it tested me. It tested me at a time in my life where a lot of things were falling apart. And it made me realize I wasn't this person I thought I was. I thought I was such a patient person and yada, yada, yada. And I am pretty much. But at the same time, learning how to negotiate, those parts of self that she really began to magnify in me, including my wounding from childhood. It really woke up and activated at that time in my life. So I wouldn't be here right now if it hadn't been for my children. I really do know that. So the most important thing to me is that I continue to get better every day so that I can show up and I can be worthy of being their mom. Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that. Awesome. How old are they?
So my daughter's 13 and my son's 11.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
Teenage years.
Teenage and preteen. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Does she have a little more attitude, or?
She has, what, the funny thing about my daughter is she was born with attitude. I have this story that I like to share with her all the time, is that after I'd given birth to her, I was holding her and I was alone with her at the time, and I was absolutely terrified because the way she was looking me up and down, it felt like she was judging me, literally. And we still laugh about this, but she's always been feisty. She came out, she slapped the nurse when they tried to put in the thing in her eye. She's always been like feisty. She's always had that. I feel like one of the funnest things about her becoming a teenager is seeing her become more comfortable in expressing that again. So she's coming into herself. She's having more agency where her own creativity and her self-expression is concerned. So yeah, there's definitely, I wouldn't say there's more attitude, but there's more freedom in expressing it. Your guitars are beautiful.
Beautiful. My
guitars.
Oh, thank you. My babies. Yes.
Last
Tuesday, I just rocked this guy. I just call this one Cherry.
Nice.
1960s beautiful guitar. I love this guitar. And then this one I just got at a pawn shop and stuck a bunch of butterflies on it. It's not a big deal, that one. But yeah, they're great. They're great. I'm really grateful. I've got this great little space, my studio. I've got a piano right here in front of me, or like a keyboard, and my microphone. So I'm all set up. It's pretty great.
Very cool. My daughter is a songwriter also. She writes her own music too. So very cool. Very cool. Yeah, my daughter. I wanted to be a folk singer once upon a time. But I never really I wasn't very good at the guitar, so I abandoned that dream.
The guitar is not easy. It's strange. It's a very popular instrument, but it's not an easy instrument.
Yeah, it's beautiful though. It's like I love strings. I love hearing in music. I will always tune into finding the strings. I've always just been very connected to the strings. So I love acoustic guitar pieces, etc. So I've always had a love for hearing it, and I thought I could transfer that into playing it, and that didn't work for me. So
you were just gently nudged into what you're supposed to be doing,
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. It was all preparation for this. Every single lesson. Yes. Yes.
So what does this next year hold for you? Do you have plans for developing into new arenas, growing what you're doing? What does your year look like?
I'm kind of just going with the flow right now. There are things that I am working on and that I hope to roll out. I'd like to find more time to return to writing. I'm writing a book. I'm writing 2 books. And I would like to have the time to feel like I can sit down and focus on that. I would love at some point to put together a course. I've been approached about that a few times, putting together classes. But again, that's the issue of finding the time to do all of that. And I struggle sometimes with holding together the structure as and I've shared this on Substack before, like I've had to heal from a lot of trauma. And one way that the trauma really had an effect on me was my executive dysfunction. I find it hard sometimes to structure myself. I can help people structure. I can help other beings do it for themselves, but I find it difficult sometimes to do it for myself. So my focus has really been on healing myself, and not just emotionally and mentally and spiritually, but also now moving into my actual body and dealing with a lot of the processes that have occurred because of the buildup of trauma and not knowing how these things grow in the body, and taking the real time to connect and to relate with everything that I need so that moving forward, I'm growing from a foundation that is stable and that can flourish. So that's my main concern, and I feel like everything begins to flow from that. But it's really scary because at the same time it goes against everything we've kind of been told we're supposed to do in order to ensure success, So like transitioning into doing classes, having more time to put out an actual book. That would be more long-term goals. In terms of my Substack, I'm really excited because I kind of use Substack as a hub, not only for my writing, but I also have opened it up over the past few months to having group Q&A sessions with my patrons also. So I have one coming up this Sunday, a group Q&A, which is great because then I get to meet people. I get to talk about what's going on with them. I get to provide some guidance. I get to show up and kind of be more of a presence. So I'm very excited about doing more of that work. I've started doing more group Q&As through my other channels, through YouTube also. So I feel like it's time for me to begin to get out there more on a personal level. So it's one thing to put my work out there and have people comment online. And it's another thing to begin to interface one-to-one with people and within a group setting. And it's pushing me out of my comfort zone because I am an introvert and I'm not always very comfortable in those spaces, but I'm learning how to be. So it's a good thing for me also. But yeah, I hope that answered your question.
I love that you're doing I love your language, you're interfacing with the people that you're connecting with. And yeah, I really, I'm on the same trajectory. It feels like we're just, building those bridges with other people, the mycelium network, rhizomatic, as Deanie says, right? And we're just connecting, lighting up the world with our individual little lighthouses. And my favorite piece of yours, and I'm going to be linking to it in the post that I make about this podcast, is the one where you were just that day, you were on fire about knowing your worth and stop giving your gifts away. And, and it's weird being in a world as a musician where it's almost the only thing that people expect to get for free.
Oh yes, same being in the world of spiritualism and being a healer. People will also guilt you for not giving away your gifts for free, as if you owe them any part of the wisdom that you've painstakingly had to, transmute a lot of densities in order to have. And, people don't always have a lot of respect for creators, you know, but the reality is that we spend just as much time honing our craft as anyone else. So why shouldn't we be properly compensated for our contributions to the world? It's music, it's art, it's a word of encouragement that can shift a person's entire day and the trajectory of their life onto the right path. And it can help them to prosper in all arenas of their lives. So why shouldn't that be valued, you know? So yeah, I'm glad you like that piece. Sometimes I get on my soapbox and I'm just like, enough, I've got to say this, and then I kind of retreat.
It lit me up, you know, because it's the thing that I've been struggling with as well. And but yeah, so thank you for that. And thank you for saying exactly what my soul really wanted to hear for me to elevate to the next level. It is going to come from me first. It's about honoring my gifts. I've been giving them freely my whole life, you know, and I'm going to keep giving them, but I need to subsist. I gotta.
You can't flow from an empty cistern. You have to be replenished. You have to be centered in your root in order to continue to give. And so I'm just of the opinion now that as I show up for myself and as I do what's right to feel good in myself so I can show up in the world and be who it is I came here to be, then I'm going to magnetize and, you know, other beings who are here to match that energy too. So my focus now is less on, you know, chasing people and, you know, and just being in my energy and putting it out there and allowing those who are supposed to come, you know?
Yeah. And it's enough, you know, that defeating the lie that it isn't. Success to me has been redefined as just keep showing up. Just keep showing up as you are. And that's it.
Absolutely. The more you see, there's material success and then there's eternal success, if you ask me. And the eternal success is the work of the soul. And so every single day, if your main job is to be to access more higher versions of self or more truer aspects of self that you can now embody, then that's enough. And some days are integration days where you're supposed to just chill out and rest and recuperate and do nothing and not feel guilty in that, because even when you're doing nothing, you're doing something is happening. You know, it's in those moments of pause where so much gets it's where preparation occurs for life, you know. So yeah.
Wonderful. Well, it's such a pleasure to have crossed paths with you and to be basking in the offering of your wisdom and your light and to walk beside you on your journey. Well, you know, we're together in this.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to meet you and to partake in your work. And I think what you're doing here is wonderful too. I enjoy your chats. So thank you. Thank you. Thank you for putting yourself out into the world. Your music, your words, your essence. Thank you.
Thank you. Yay. Okay, sister. See you later.
Bye-bye.
Like Jekyll hid his hide, you kept your monster.